Hey, what's up, guys? You're now listening to Devo with Uncle Theo. Today is day 87, and we're going to cover Judges chapter 15 and 16. Last time we left off, we covered Manoah and his wife. She had given birth to Samson, and the angel of the Lord had come to them to tell them exactly what to do and exactly what Samson was going to be. And the reason we went with the pre-incarnate Christ here is because Manoah's wife said that he had the appearance that was very awesome, like that of the angel of God. The text uses the word, the angel of the Lord, but Manoah actually asked him in verse 17, he said, "What is your name?" And the angel said, "My name is too wonderful for you." And then he performed many miracles, and a flame came from heaven and received the sacrifice. He immediately went into the story of Samson. And Samson was interesting. We saw how he pretty much broke every piece of the Nazirite vow that the Lord had placed him under. And we're going to see that even more today. Yesterday, we saw that he tore a lion in pieces with his bare hands. He killed 30 men when the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, when they guessed his riddle, when they coerced his wife to give them the answer. But today, we're going to see more of that. And so remember, the father gave the wife to a companion when he left because he was like, one, Samson is an enemy. And two, we don't think he's coming back either. But chapter 15 begins with, guess what? Him coming back. So let's read that. But after a while, in the time of wheat harvest, Samson visited his wife with a young goat and said, "I will go in to my wife in her room." But her father did not let him enter. Her father said, "I really thought that you hated her intensely, so I gave her to your companion. Is not her younger sister more beautiful than she?" And so now he's trying to pawn his other daughter off because he knows the potential of Samson. But look at what happens. It says, Samson then said to them, "This time I will be blameless in regard to the Philistines when I do them harm." So Samson went and caught 300 foxes and took torches and turned the foxes tail to tail and put one torch in the middle between the two tails. And he set fire to the torches and released the foxes into the standing grain of the Philistines, thus burning up both the shocks and the standing grain, along with the vineyards and groves. So historically, scholars have determined this place as a place called the Splaylah. And the Splaylah is a very fertile ground in the land of Canaan, which is why the Philistines were there and had that territory. This ground produced a lot of crops, and to burn this area would be debilitating and a huge nuisance. And Samson knows that, and he hits him where it hurt. In verse 6, it says, the Philistines said, "Who did this?" And they said, "Samson, the son-in-law of the Timnite, because he took his wife and gave her to his companion." So the Philistines came up and burned her and her father with fire. And Samson said to them, "Since you act like this, I will surely take revenge on you, but after that I will quit." So he struck them ruthlessly with a great slaughter, and he went down and lived in the cleft of the rock of Etam. So the Philistines, they get up and they go and camp in Judah in search for Samson. And so Judah brings 3,000 men down to the cliff where Samson was and says to them, "Don't you know the Philistines are looking for you? What have you done?" He said, "As they did to me, I did to them." And they said, "We've come to bind you so that we may give you into the hands of the Philistines." And so Samson says, "Okay, just swear to me that you will not kill me." And they said to him, "No, we won't kill you. We'll bind you fast and give you into their hands." And so they do that. They bound him with 2 new ropes and brought him up from the rock. And what happens, the Philistines shouted when they met him, but the Spirit of the Lord comes upon him. He snapped the ropes. It says like they were burned with fire. He just snaps them off. And he takes a fresh jawbone from a donkey and killed 1,000 men with it. And he comes up with a poem. He says, "With the jawbone of a donkey, heaps upon heaps, with the jawbone of a donkey, I have killed 1,000 men." Then this chapter, interestingly, wraps up with Samson asking God for a miracle. He says, "Did you empower me to kill these men? But are you going to let your servant die of thirst?" And God miraculously provides water from him from this hollow place. And he drank it, and it says his strength returned and revived. And that moves us into chapter 16, where Samson is going to get exposed. So he goes to Gaza, and he's with a harlot there. And it says, when it was told to the Gazites, saying, "Samson has come here," They surrounded the place and laid wait for him all night at the gate of the city. And they kept silent all night, saying, "Let us wait until the morning light, then we will kill him." And Samson laid until midnight, and at midnight he arose and took hold of the doors of the city gate and the two posts and pulled them up along with the bars. Then he put them on his shoulders and carried them up to the top of the mountain, which is opposite Hebron. And so, just to give you some context on this, it's been estimated that this gate he picks up weighs about 3 to 10 tons, and it's 30 miles from where he is to Hebron. So he picks up a 3 to 10 ton gate and walks 30 miles with it. This is to give you a perspective of the strength of Samson. But you're seeing he's a womanizer, he's arrogant, he wants to marry a pagan, he doesn't listen to his parents, but God superintends all of this. He turns this evil and uses it for good. And that leads us to our last story about Samson. Verse 4 says he came to a valley of Sorek, met a lady by the name of Delilah. The lords of the Philistines came up to her and said to her, "Entice him and see where his great strength lies, and how we may overpower him, that we may bind him to afflict him. And we will give you 1,100 pieces of silver." So this is a lot of money. When you're talking about a bounty on somebody's head, this is a big bag. We're talking anywhere from $750,000 to $6 million when you're looking at today's currency. So just think about how badly they wanted Samson. So Delilah does this. She comes to him 4 times actually, and he deceives her 3. Let's highlight those. So she asks him, "Where does your great strength come from? How is it that you can be bound and lose your strength and be afflicted?" First, he says to her, "If they bind me with 7 fresh cords that have not been dried, then that'll do it." And so she does that. And she has men hiding to see if it works. She yells and tells him, "The Philistines are upon you." And he just snaps the cords like it's nothing. The text actually said like a string that had been touched with a fire, it just pops off. So this frustrates Delilah, and she comes back to him and says, "Why did you lie to me? Tell me what will cause you to lose your strength." So in verse 11, he says, "If they bind me with tightly new ropes, which have not been used, then I will become weak like any other man." So she did that. The men are lying and hiding again to get him. And she calls out, and he snaps those, the text says, just like a thread. Can you see how even the first woman set the stage for this with the riddle? God is showing us why you aren't to follow pagan women and foreign women, because they'll lead your heart away from Yahweh. And she's persistent. She's doing exactly that. She's going to come to him a 3rd time, but you can tell he's breaking because he's going to actually get close to where his strength is without telling her. Look at what he says this time. She says, "You've deceived me and told me lies. How may you be bound?" And he said to her, "If you weave up the 7 locks that are on my hair with the web and fasten it with a pin, then I'll become weak like any other man." The key is his hair, and he got on it that time. So you can tell she's getting close and it's working. But she does it, the same thing happens. He awoke from his sleep and he just pulls the pin out of his hair. And now she hits him hard. She actually gets the secret sauce this time. She says, "How can you say I love you when your heart is not with me? You have deceived me these 3 times and have not told me where your great strength is." It came about when she pressed him daily with her words and urged him, that his soul was annoyed to death. So he told her all that was in his heart and said to her, "A razor has never come on my head, for I have been a Nazarite to God from my mother's womb. If I am shaved, then my strength will leave me and I will become weak like any other man." And that's it. He tells her, she does it. She has his head shaved while he sleeps, and she yells again, and he awoke from his sleep. And he says, "I will go out as the other times and shake myself." But he did not know that listen to this, the Lord had departed from him, and he lost his strength. So this time the Philistines sees him, and they gouge his eyes out. So now he's a blind man. They take him into captivity. But over time, while he's in prison, his hair grows back. And in verse 28, Samson calls out to the Lord and says, "Oh Lord, please remember me and please strengthen me just this time, O God, that I may be avenged of the Philistines for my 2 eyes." And Samson grasped the 2 middle pillars which the house rested, and braced himself against them, the one on his right hand and the one on his left. And Samson said, let me die with the Philistines. And he bent with all his might, so that the house fell on the lords and all the people who were in it. So the dead who he killed at his death were more than those whom he killed in his life. And there you have it. Samson, the final judge, it says that he was buried in a tomb of Manoah, his father, and he had judged for 20 years. And you see the graciousness of God. Even though Samson is sinful and imperfect, God still uses him, and he judges the Philistines through him. And the biggest takeaway I want you to take away with Samson is we get what it means to be a Nazirite. And so God is going to start using what's called fools. And what a fool is, it's a literary device where you get to see the good version of something and the bad version of something. So Saul is a fool for David. Samson is going to be a fool for Samuel. Nazirites are going to gain the reputation of becoming kingmakers. Nazirites are going to anoint kings. And so Samson is giving you the bad version of that. So when you see the good version, you can know just what you got. And that's going to set the stage for another Nazirite to come and anoint another king. This Nazirite's name is going to be John the Baptist, and he's going to anoint the King Jesus that we've been following through scripture this whole time. And even Judges is building that theology. So don't ever skip a book, because God is building special things one book at a time. And let's keep going together. You guys take care.